For nearly 2 weeks, thousands of people demonstrated outside the headquarters of the Hong Kong government. They were protesting a Beijing-backed plan to introduce mandatory patriotic education classes in the territory's schools. It was a move many saw as a ploy to indoctrinate Hong Kong's young people into unquestioning support for the Chinese Communist Party. Jackie Ho turned out with his young son Gabriel.
I want my next generation to be able to think about what they want to think about, and not someone to tell them what to do and tell them what they have to think about.
I'm worried that my next generation will be brainwashed by the government, said university student Jason Leung. I have friends from mainland China who took these kinds of national education courses, and they felt it was very one-sided. The proposed curriculum is full of praise for the Chinese Communist Party and China's current achievements, and largely ignores episodes like Chairman Mao's Great Leap Forward of the 1950s, which produced a catastrophic famine, or the chaotic Cultural Revolution of the 1960s, or the 1989 crackdown on democracy protesters in Tiananmen Square. The Chinese Communist Party hides the bad news and only reports the good news, said protest organizer Becky Yam. They use extreme methods to control the people. It's only because we have freedom of information in Hong Kong that we are aware of these things. The protests cut to the heart of perhaps the most important issue since Britain handed this longtime colony back to China in 1997, Hong Kong's identity. After Beijing resumed sovereignty, Hong Kong's way of life was guaranteed under a formula called One Country, Two Systems. This included keeping its own independent legal and educational system and maintaining civil liberties, such as freedom of speech and the right to protest, not seen in mainland China. But as the territory's economy has become increasingly integrated with the mainland, Beijing and its allies in Hong Kong have urged the development of a greater sense of Chinese national identity, including the promotion of patriotic education. As the protests gathered strength, there was a steady drumbeat of criticism from pro-China elements in Hong Kong. A local newspaper controlled by the Chinese Communist Party described the movement as a Western-backed conspiracy to create chaos, and a commentary in a local TV station with close ties to Beijing said that Washington and London were to blame. But the nasty accusations only fueled the demonstrations, which nonetheless remained orderly and extremely well organized. Led by high school and university students, many of whom had never gotten involved in politics before, the protesters worked with the police to handle the large crowds, provided food, water, and medical stations, dispelling the notion that their movement was causing chaos. In the face of the continuing protests, Hong Kong's chief executive, C.Y. Leung, who only took office in July, eventually backed down, blaming the crisis on his predecessor's efforts to introduce the controversial curriculum.
The introduction of moral and national education, the way that is specified in the policy that my government and myself inherited, is not something of our making. And as soon as we realize that there are opposing and different views in the community, I myself and my team have very quickly dealt with the issue.
The reversal came the night before Hong Kong went to the polls to choose new members of its legislature. Under a complex electoral system heavily weighted in favor of conservative, pro-Beijing business groups, pro-democracy candidates nonetheless won nearly 60% of the popular vote, but they only got 27 of the 70 seats. Still, the message from the election and the protests seemed clear. The people of Hong Kong are willing to take to the streets to defend the autonomy they were promised, a new, more confrontational political landscape that the chief executive and the central government in Beijing will now have to navigate.